Welcome to Pixarize's scene for Klinefelter syndrome, or should I say Klinefelter syndrome. Yep, that's what we got going on for you. It's a guy fixing an AC unit and installing a sparkling new filter, a clean filter. Just like Klinefelter patients, this machine has got a lot of dysfunctional parts, so he needs to get crackin', or fixin', I guess, and so do we. Let's start by considering the genetic defect that causes Klinefelter syndrome. Our AC repairman is standing next to a couple of X-bar wrenches he used to replace the filter. Poor guy broke the first one and had to go back for a replacement. These two X-bar wrenches represent X chromosomes, since Klinefelter's is caused by a meiotic non-disjunction event that results in males with a 47XXY karyotype. The bar in X-bar will help you remember that one of these X's becomes a bar body after being inactivated, or, in the case of our picture, broken. So we know that Klinefelter syndrome is caused by an extra X chromosome in phenotypically male patients. Let's take a look at the AC unit itself to get a better grasp of the pathophysiology at play. If we look at the front of the unit, we can see that its certificate of authenticity, or Energy Star status, or medical school diploma, or whatever they put on AC units these days, is torn. The torn certificate should help remind us that in Klinefelter, the Sertoli cells are dysfunctional. Certificate? Sertoli. You got it. We should also remember that the Sertoli cells line the seminiferous tubules in the testes if we take a closer look at the rolled tube-like edges of the certificate. Still with me? Good. Now, if we think of the air conditioner as the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis, as I know we are all frequently apt to do, we can understand the error message on the other side of the unit. An air conditioning system self-regulates by sensing changes in temperature and adjusting its output through a number of mechanical mechanisms that us biology majors probably don't really understand. But what we do understand is that the HPG axis senses hormonal changes and self-regulates too. This error message tells us that this self-regulating circuitry has gone awry in Klinefelter patients. Let's unpack that concept. It should be easier than unpacking that massive AC unit was for our skinny-legged repairman. But more on that in a bit. Right now, let's take a look beneath the unit. At Pixarize, we like to depict laboratory levels that are decreased from normal below those that are elevated. This blue inhibitory security sign reminds us that inhibin B for blue, normally synthesized by the Sertoli cells, is decreased in the setting of Klinefelter, since those Sertoli cells are dysfunctional. Conversely, notice that the fish tank in the window is above the unit. This will help remind us that levels of FSH, or follicle-stimulating hormone, that are usually or follicle-stimulating E are instead elevated. You know that FSH is pronounced fish, right? I wonder if those fish are in the window to give them a nice view of the outside world. I don't know if that's kind-hearted or cruel. Topic for another video. Next, let's look down below the garden. See those crushed ladybugs on the wall? They're more than just a metaphor for the death of beauty in the world. The ladybugs represent Leydig cells, the other important endocrine cell type in the testes. Leydig cells are as messed up as Sertoli cells in Klinefelter syndrome, which makes them less capable of doing their job, which is to produce testosterone. Moving up, we see a neglected window garden. These shrunken, small, ball-shaped tomatoes represent the testicular atrophy and hypogonadism that results from low testosterone in Klinefelter syndrome. Remember our crushed Leydig ladybugs? You can thank them for the decreased testosterone levels. You can remember their low testosterone output by examining the broken test tube, test testosterone, from the garden that has fallen to the ground. Next, notice how our window garden also features a sagging eggplant. This represents infertility since the human analog to the eggplant isn't going to fertilize much if it's rotten. If we recall that the certificate Sertoli cells are responsible for supporting sperm maturation, it should make sense that Sertoli cell dysfunction and degeneration of the seminiferous tubules causes a reduction of sperm, or azospermia. In fact, a couple's failure to conceive is often how Klinefelter patients first present. Looking back at our window scene, we see a couple of relics from ancient Greece. I wonder how Hippocrates studied without pixar eyes. He probably couldn't remember anything. The lute that sits high up in the window represents the elevated luteinizing hormone, which results from decreased testosterone feedback inhibition on the pituitary and the hypothalamus. The Trojan horse to the right of the lute represents elevated estrogen levels. Increased estrogen levels are caused by elevated FSH in Klinefelter syndrome, as FSH stimulates the enzyme aromatase, which converts testosterone to estrogen. Now that we understand what's going wrong in Klinefelter, let's talk about how it presents by taking a closer look at our repairman. 47XXY males have elevated estrogen levels, recall our estrogen horse, and develop gynecomastia, or male breasts. They also develop tall, thin limbs and low muscle mass, which is why I mentioned earlier that our tall, svelte repair guy probably had trouble moving that hefty AC unit around. Let's finish up by discussing some of the histological findings in Klinefelter. Notice that our repairman has brought a new Sertoli certificate in a glass bottle. This will help remind us that on pathology specimens of testicular biopsies, you might see hyaline or glass-like seminiferous tubules and Sertoli cells. Next to the bottle, we find a cluster of much more lively-looking Leydig ladybugs. Lively-looking Leydig ladybugs, that is a tongue twister. This will help us remember that these images might include pseudoadenomatous clusters of Leydig cells. And that's it. Thanks to our intrepid AC repair guy, we learned a lot about clean filters and Klinefelter, and the owner of that house will probably have a much more enjoyable summer once that broken thing gets fixed. Once you get all the board questions on Klinefelters right, you can get back to analyzing the human condition, or the fish condition, or if all ladybugs go to heaven, whatever you want. Until next time.